Majority of them actually have ended up going into academic positions, and in different ranges of academic institutions, but largely some of them continuing to do the research, some are doing predominantly teaching, everything arranged from we have a really successful person that is in the sociology department in a community college, and now a very successful tenured professor, other person in more kind of a combined teaching and research. So each one have been off to theirs, in different things that they wanted to do. So it's been really fascinating and just really rewarding to see them be able to, land where they wanted with different kinds of jobs. I have one postdoc who is worse than me in terms of getting bored easily. He's been doing all kinds of different things. He recently just joined a position with the World Health Organization. So all kinds of different things that the folks have done. Again, it's a little different because our folks it's a little different in going into the social sciences because it's not as intensively research oriented. So it's really, practicing kind of presenting themselves, because a core element of interviewing is preparing, like, who is it you're presenting? So again, just helping them kind of think through what is whoever is interviewing you, whatever jobs you're applying to, what are they looking for? And that's the biggest thing you have to start with, just like with a postdoc. What can be after the postdoc? What is it that a person is kind of looking for in what you bring? I've actually had quite a bit of experience doing it actually in more of the lab sciences right now, because I do work with other postdocs in my role of grant writing assistants and those. So again, in those settings, it's very different in terms of the intensiveness of having the formal talk, the chalk talk, all these things. So again, it's totally customized by a particular type of role or type of position that someone is applying for and interviewing for.
What are the key points that really drive you and what you really care about? And that's, I think, when I tell mentees to do this, they tend to be more successful on that job search when they're being authentic, really leaning into who they are. Because there's something that happens when you're authentic. You connect with other human beings, and sometimes you resonate with the other, or that there's no resonation. It doesn't resonate as well, and that's okay too. But maybe you don't want to be in those certain types of environments. I've been fortunate to resonate with environments that I've been in, and I've been quite blessed, and I'm quite fortunate. And so but I do know that there are some times that the situation that the postdoc may be in or where they're going may not be the best fit for them. But then, like my mother told me, who only had a junior high school degree, not even a full high school degree from El Salvador, she mentioned with education you can get another job. So if you're not fully being used for all your talents, think of what's missing. What is it that not being used? And then find that opportunity, whether it's a faculty position or outside of academia. And there are tons of, my sister, she has a PhD, but she's a patent agent. And so she passed the patent bar. And now she works in, tech transfer and licensing at the National Institutes of Health. Right. And so there's so many different paths to go. If you're a scientist, you're trained in that's so useful in so many different areas, especially in anywhere tangential to science, but not even in science as well. And so I would ask trainees to really reflect, what are their superpowers? What are they holding back? Can they share that? What's really important to them? So these are the questions, and as they practice in the mirror, saying it, I think something's going to erupt out of them, this confidence that just broods. Because how can you not be confident in who you authentically are? When you really talk about what you love and what you do, then that just flows, and that confidence just helps with the job process and the job interview, and I think that's really important to do.
I am very passionate about finding the right opportunities for my mentees where they can do the job they want and also draw a salary that they deserve. Therefore, most of my mentees have ended up doing diverse jobs in industry, but also quite a bigger chunk of them has gone on to biotech entrepreneurship. There is a misconception going around in the field that you lose your scientific freedom when you move on to the industry. That's absolutely not correct. If anything, industry welcomes innovations, ideas, opportunities, and we just go at light speed. That's the difference. I think how to identify the jobs and then go to the interviews are two of the biggest pain points that the postdoctoral researchers currently go through. I really help them in bringing out, again, their inner talent and to communicate that to the audience without getting too much into technical details, like say your worth and say as it is. We do interview prep practices, we do fit future questions, things like that, and most importantly, I say out my salary loud so that a person who is going into the industry has a benchmark, because oftentimes you don't know where to ask, whom to ask, what's a fair range, and industry sometimes can be not transparent. So it helps to have a benchmark. And again, there is nothing wrong in getting what you deserve or asking for it.
In general, I advise them to network a lot. And so I think part of the importance of building a network while, from the get-go, is so that they have a good network that they can ask questions about. And I mean, I'm a big believer in soliciting advice broadly, and you don't have to take all of that advice. But I always just find it fascinating to get so many different opinions and think about what resonates most with me. And I advise my postdocs and anyone I mentor to do the same. In terms, I do feel like they're general pieces of advice that hold regardless of the type of job. So things like, tailoring your application, networking as much as you can to find out as much about the job as you can, even as you're preparing that cover letter, preparing for the interview, finding out who you're meeting with. And then, nothing is official until everything is signed. I always find that's really important to emphasize. In terms of, I do have friends, and actually my spouse is in industry, and that is helpful. So sometimes I will ask them directly, what's going on in a particular industry, what are salary rates like. But I also find that in general, my trainees, I think, are good about like building connections with other people.
Certainly, with the closing out of any kind of a research-oriented position, is the data have to be accessible. If there has been a fair amount of, say, personalized or individualized treatment of data or analysis of data, like in our case, the qualitative data, we have a lot of it's done in a sophisticated software, but a lot of that is not. A lot of the analysis is not done in the software. So making sure that everybody has access to whatever notes and whatever things. So in laboratories, it's more systematized than it is necessarily in, say, the social sciences, where it's a bit more individual and isn't the same kind of data. But it's getting things cleaned up. It's a matter of having accessible, if they're projects, trying to get those cleaned up as much as they can, because helping people realize you think you're going to keep going when you get to your new place, you won't. It's just there's too many things to take on. So if you think you can, I'll keep writing that paper over the next 3 months. No, you won't. It just doesn't work that way. So making sure we get things cleaned up as much as we can.
We have a conversation about what resources, what research questions they plan to take with them, because I think that some postdocs are worried that they won't be able to take anything with them, and I don't think that's the case. I think in maybe the more reasonable concern, I think, is if they're going on into an academic job, are we going to be competing, or are we going to need to collaborate, right? And I always want to make sure that they're able to establish their independence and be viewed as such, even with through a critical lens. So to me, the first conversation has to be, okay, and actually it's not a conversation that we start when they're about to leave, but it's a conversation that happens early. Like, what are you envisioning will be kind of your thing or your things, when you leave the lab, and let's make sure that you're able to then take that with you and that you're self-sufficient on that. So when a postdoc is really about to leave, we sort of renew that conversation and make sure that we're all on the same page about that, and that they're able to keep doing the work that they have been doing, or at least that they want to do. the suddenness of the departure can be really painful, and not to mention sad. But and so again, I think the preparation starting before then is really important in terms of good data management and backups, and also knowledge transfer to the extent possible to other members of the lab.